Well, let's get into Chaos Rising.
Chaos Rising. Yes. So finally, we are back with. I was about ready to say Grand Admiral Thrawn, but it's not. We're back with Captain Thrawn because this is way back with a prequel to the other Thrawn trilogy. And Aaron, I want to start this off by saying one of my favorite things about this book is something that you showed me before I even started, which was the first 5 seconds.
I love that.
of Mark Thompson narrating the book.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's just every time we always start one of these, all the audiobooks, I usually do the Audible versions and stuff, and they always start, with Star Wars. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Yeah. And this one started off differently, and it was what is it? A long time ago, beyond a galaxy.
The way Mark Thompson does to you, he teases you. A long time ago, beyond a galaxy far, far away. I'm like, what?
Where
are we going, Mark?
Which I do like this. I like getting a chance to kind of see, like, what's further than the galaxy that we know, and Ahsoka has kind of been started to deal with this a little bit now too. But this is on the Chiss side of things. Yes. And there's a lot of things I like in this book. A lot of things I don't know. I don't want to say a lot of things I don't like, but like it was tough for me because there's so much new. Yeah. I think I thrive so much more in the books where I can pull from the things I know and put that into my mind of what things look like. So like picturing
the only real grounding you would have had was just Thrawn's voice.
Thrawn, I suppose. Yeah. So like, Thrawn, trying to picture what Thrawn looks like and stuff. Arlani being in here helped a little bit because I kind of already had her a little bit from before. But, like, I don't know what Chilla really looks like. I don't know. A lot of these new characters, the names, like, there's so much.
I forgot my character list because I agree with you, especially on names. Because, like, when I'm reading it, no problem. But their names on recall, I'm like, nope, don't got it.
Yeah.
I didn't bring it.
Like, there's one Chiss that I really did like the character of, but I cannot tell you what his name is. Yeah. I want to say it's, like, Markon, I forget exactly. But you called him the same thing I was like referring to him in my head, which was because of Mark Thompson and the way that he voices all these characters. He does such a good job of giving unique voices to a lot of them.
But he has to find a voice.
Yeah, what does this guy sound like?
What does this guy sound like?
And I love Jack Nicholson Chiss. Like that's what he did with it, right?
He kind of sounds like this.
Yeah. And when
I heard it, I was like, whoa, but every time he talked, I took note. Yeah. And I was like, I like this guy too.
Yeah. And like
Grand Admiral Thrawn.
He became one of my favorites in it. Maybe because of the voice, maybe because of the character and who he was. Because he was, I think, a mid-captain to Thrawn. Yeah. And I enjoyed his element of the story, but also I enjoyed the performance from Mark Thompson, I think, maybe as much. And then I started to picture him as like a Nicholson.
Like a young
Chiss.
Nicholson.
Yeah, right? Like pulling from like that. And yeah. I don't know how you say that.
Nexus says, is
Samacro.
Samacro.
Yeah, Samacro. Like
Mithran Yodo.
Which also in this one here, we learned that I don't know. There's this family hierarchy thing. There's like I think 9 families or something like that. Some of them are more important, I suppose, than other ones. Like they're like the bigger families. But like Thrawn's name wasn't Thrawn initially. Yeah. It was like Vron. Because he had a different family name of he didn't have Myth. He had oh man, I forget what it was. I don't know if I wrote it down. But he had another name, and I was like, in another version, maybe just reading it and not having Mark Thompson narrate it. There's a chapter. I like the memories they do.
Me too.
I wish some of them would have been a little bit more back. I think, because sometimes I feel like they were just kind of like, here's the memories. It's an important chapter, but it's kind of tied in exactly to where we are already. Sure. But I really enjoy when we go back to him joining the Myth. I really enjoyed when we went back to him first meeting the glossary.
Yeah. That reminded me, like the memories thing reminded me of being able to go back and look at Anakin and Vader in the other book.
Yeah. Thalasia?
Thalasia.
Is that right? There we go. Like
Thalasia.
I'm really bad with name. Thalicia.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm real bad with the names for her. I can say Cheery. Yeah. I got that one.
I just, we're already into it, but like, I love the world building of this.
There's a lot of it.
There's a lot of it. But especially like the words they use as opposed to the words I know, like the chaos and
I love how they explain like the outside of the galaxy would being the chaos and like traveling is difficult because so much kind of changes. So like you have to go short bursts more so. You can't do like real long travel because it changes so drastically. You have to, I mean, the Skywalkers, the Pathfinders are really important because you need them to be able to kind of guide you through all of this. And I thought it was really interesting how they just call it the chaos, but two, like how they described it, I thought was really cool.
You know, the Skywalker thing, the thing that they call them Skywalkers, when I first heard that, I thought, that's dumb. Don't do that. But now that I've read it and experienced it and gone through it and hear Thrawn be like, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
You know?
You're experiencing it as just a Chiss, not thinking about it any tide at all. Whereas previously, I feel like you're learning it from like a Vader or in our galaxy perspective, right?
Well, because we get to, again, we go back to that Anakin scene.
Oh, Batu?
Yeah. And then he's like, Skywalker. What an interesting name, you know? And you're like, oh, now I get it. I love that I just experienced the story as intended, and I liked it.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to go back and re-listen to Alliances because in that moment, I'm like, man, I don't think I really thought about like what is Thrawn's like moment of discovery of he's a Skywalker. Like I don't. Because I think we had that all from the other side, right? We were Anakin talking to this voice on the other side, whoever he is. But this time, and we get to learn who the other pilot person is in that ship with him, too.
And I remember when we did that review, I remember bringing up a line being like, do you think his pilot's a kid?
Sure. Like
because of something he said. But especially when we've already talked about this today, and we talk about this probably every Badonkagunk, that's such a Star Wars moment to relive a scene and understand it with different contexts. That's so integral to Star Wars because of its living mythology criteria.
Yeah.
So I got to experience that in novel form, you know?
And we get a lot more of that scene from before, right? Because like
more of it.
A lot of Alliances is like, well, Padme's going to go meet this person, but we see Thrawn like notice that individual that they're going to go see, I think, first, right?
Yes.
And then he follows them, and then he just sits there and waits for all like, okay, Padme's come now. Oh, here's a new person here, and like getting in the mind of Thrawn of like what he notices. That ship looks different. They've been sitting for a little bit. We're going to contact them.
What his weaknesses are.
Yeah.
What he doesn't notice. It's sometimes more interesting than what he does. It's so pure, especially in an election year, to have like a genius that just has no mind for politics.
Yeah.
A strategic genius that's like, that doesn't make sense to me, and thus I can't do it.
His political weaknesses and stuff.
Well, it's because at its foundation, politics can be irrational. Yeah. And he doesn't understand irrationality. Yeah. I love it. But he understands art. He can understand that. You know?
No, he does understand art, which is good. I do wish that, like, in some of the memories and the flashbacks, I almost wanted. Did you feel like Thrawn was just kind of like? I wanted the growth of him, I suppose, of like why he is so good, or maybe him a little younger.
Sure.
But I feel like I was just like, okay, here's Thrawn. He's still really good. People are just surprised by how good he is.
We hear about mistakes that he's made.
True.
We don't necessarily see them.
I think he starts off the book injured from like a pirate fight or something like that too. But like he is still just like I don't know. He's still really good at like so much stuff.
And I agree. But they are kind of like I guess what they're saying is that's the point. In a way, right? Because we're introduced and like you think, oh, Mithran Yodo. He must have been. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Mithran Yodo.
Yeah,
Mithran Yodo. Like
Mithran Yodo.
Yeah, I love that scene. Sorry, I love that too.
But yeah, I mean, you know, like the idea that no, he's not. It's not the circumstance of his birth. It's not because he was amazingly well trained or anything. Like he is a prodigy at something.
Yeah, true.
And the idea that you use that to introduce the family politic dynamic of the Chiss, in that, like, blood is probably important, but like loyalty is very important, but it's also not because of the politics thing. But like Thrawn is kind of thrust into there, and he goes through that crucible of where his place in the Chiss Empire is going to be, but not necessarily developing his skill set.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we don't get to see Anakin experience the Force for the first time.
No.
He's already experienced it a bit with the pod racing. You
True,
know?
yeah.
So, but I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I probably, if I had heard before, this is a prequel, it's going into this, I would expect that.
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
I get what you mean there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's why I wanted some of the flashbacks to be further back.
I understand.
Versus, like, sometimes we were just talking to characters almost about just events that had almost just happened, right?
Yeah. And I also, in terms of like prequel book material, I have really enjoyed our forays into Leia and Padme, and you do kind of get the feeling of that sometimes of being like, oh yeah, that's how she develops this skill.
Yeah,
cool.
Padme, it was really cool to get a chance of seeing like, all these different handmaidens she has. That's where all these skills and abilities come from.
Yeah.
She didn't just know how to do it all right offhand. And I guess I was kind of expecting maybe more of that from Thrawn.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I do kind of like, because they went into it a tiny bit, especially his fascination with art.
Oh yeah.
Where I always thought that his way of analyzing art was way super tactical and super rational, but I don't know. Timothy Zahn kind of taught me a different way of thinking about it, in that because Thrawn can't explain why he feels this way.
Sure,
he feels it.
There is a lot of times, and I do like where it's like, I can't explain this to you, but this is what it is.
Which. It's not that he's amazing at dissecting what art is. He's amazing at experiencing what art tells you.
Sure. But there is one memory, and this is, I mean,
art makes you feel,
there's three of them that I think are like my favorite memories, and one of them is when him and Arlani go to a museum. And I love her. She's like, I thought you said there was going to be like intrigue and drama and danger. And he's like, it is.
This is intriguing.
At the museum, like.
Are you not happy?
And I love them going through and looking at, like, they look at this one painting talking about this alien species or something like that they don't really know.
Yeah.
But it's like, what can we pull from this? And it's like, they go through talking about the knives, talking about what they look like, talking about all this stuff. It's like, okay, so if we ever have to face them, they're probably more melee, very honorable, probably won't use ranged weapons. And I'm like, man, you got all that just from seeing them sit at a dinner table,
Right.
And I really love what they do with that, and that I don't know, talent or whatever of his. And he's trying to explain it to her to the point where she's like, let's do this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now, it's to maybe a detriment because they do it for like a long time, she says.
Yeah.
And she wasn't expecting it to be that long of him just kind of going on and on. But I do find like it adds a little bit more to when we watch Rebels and Thrawn wants to like, I want your Kakori, I think is what it's called, right? The Kakori, something like that of the Calicori.
I have to hear.
That's what it is.
I have to hear his voice say Calicori.
Yeah, the Calicori. Whenever he wants that, he's taking art from Sabine. He's doing these things. Like, I don't get why he does this, but he understands it more. After hearing this memory of him, like, explain it to someone, and like you said, like, maybe he can't explain all of them, but like, here's a situation that we're gonna try to pull from, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get a little bit more of like, what can this art tell us that we don't know?
And this is also the first book that I really thought about the dichotomy of his weakness in politics and his strength in art.
Sure.
Right? Because politics are lies. Art is truth, but art is also pain. And
sure, I get what you mean.
He can understand like the honesty in art, but he can't understand the dishonesty in politics. He can understand dishonesty in military matters. But politics is about what you want to happen, not about what's going to happen right now. And I think he has a hard time like projecting himself in the future and like trying to understand what others want. But he can read what this person felt in art. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One is a future thing. Politics is about what happens next. Art is what happened in the past.
Yeah.
There's something cool about that dichotomy where he's so strong in this one and he's so weak in this one.
Sure.
It makes him it's a really cool weakness of the character.
Yeah, I get that. I think I understand a lot of that. He does do really good at like predicting the military future. But yeah, as far as like what people are wanting politically, and they address that so much in this too.
Yeah.
To the point where like I did kind of like that there's a the head of the Myth family. That moment when he
the older guy,
yeah, when he met Nexus, Thalasia, the old Skywalker who's not a Skywalker. And now she's
the guardian.
Yeah, she's the guardian of Cheery. When she's doing her trial to become a trial-born, and he just shows up, and he's like, "Hey, we don't have a lot of time, but I'm gonna talk to you for a little bit." And there's this whole aspect where like he's like, "Oh yeah, I brought him in because like he's not very good at politics, so that's why I brought in like some other people too that I think like he's looking at like what's gonna be good for the family and for the Chiss, not just like you said, blood, loyalty, like." I'm not really concerned with a lot of this stuff, but what keeps the Chiss strong? And I think Thrawn, and it's really fun to watch Thrawn. So many people don't understand him or don't believe him, but then there's other people who just like, I trust in what he can do, and I know he can do it. The maneuver thing they do where it's like, he disappeared. He cheated. you can't disappear. Like that maneuver thing that happened in their class or whatever. And then they were like, let's just go see if we can do it. Yeah. Like those kind of things, which like no one has ever done this. So they thought he cheated. And it's just, it's
very
thinks,
Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Though he did cheat.
He thinks and can just do things a little differently than a lot of other people. And I think like him pulling in like, the old Skywalker. I think Aralani was another one that he was like. There's different ones where he's like, I've gathered these, and like that's why in that first memory, whenever he's like, wait, it usually takes months for you to join a family. You're just in the family already. Yeah. And he's like, that's weird. Yeah, right. Thrawn's like, I don't know, but like that's why it happens so quick because that head of the family is doing a little bit more than just like. Let me just recruit some new people to the family and stuff. And I thought that was an interesting thing. And kind of a glimpse into how the families can kind of work, but also like there's a lot of the family stuff that I kind of don't fully get.
I understand.
So, but no, I do like seeing the people who seem to understand that there is something special about Thrawn, versus the people who are just kind of like looking at him and like, what was the guy's name? Kalori, the Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Where he's like, he doesn't understand yet. He doesn't believe him yet. But like he sees some stuff that he does,
He
and
understands him a bit more towards the end.
Yeah, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, me too. No, I love the Pathfinder stuff, the navigation guild that is around where, I also love their response to the Republic and its technologies. Like the alien worlds meeting in Star Wars is just it's always a fun time.
Yeah.
But I just really fell in love with the world building of like, hey, you kind of know this stuff, but they use different words. They think about it differently. They have different rules. That's just one of my favorite things about the expanded universe.
Yeah.
Anytime we can get Force users that aren't Jedi or Sith, and they think about things differently, that's always cool.
What did they call it? Like the Great Presence or something like that?
The Great Presence, the Force.
Yeah. And when they said that, I'm like, and it is very cool to get those little like glimpses of the Force in different ways.
Yeah.
I did like what Nexus said too for Aralani, where it's like she doesn't have the kind of traditional Chiss name, because later on in the book, whenever she kind of like she's no longer with a family. She's kind of been ascended to the point of just, you are for the Chiss, and you were part of the, what they call the expansion fleet, I think is what they were.
The expansionary fleet.
Yeah. So like when they're all part of that, but now she has ascended to an even further status and is just Aralani, as opposed to like you have Thrawn Yoroto, but that's also, there's the myth, or the other families and stuff too.
I love Aralani. Like, is it because I love her so much that I kind of ship them together?
Maybe.
I get the feeling that she likes him.
There is some elements of that.
He doesn't. I think he might be asexual.
I mean, maybe, but there's also some elements where, like, at least you sense that he seems to care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, there's a closeness between them. But I don't know if there's like meant to be any kind of relationship stuff there or not.
Yeah. I love the way that Zahn writes Thrawn. I'm not saying that I dislike seeing Thrawn in Rebels or in Ahsoka, but you do, as you experience more of Timothy Zahn's Thrawn, this version of it, you do kind of wish that would leak in a little bit. But I mean, his utilization in those shows is as the antagonist. His utilization here is the protagonist. So that's just the nature of the medium. In his role. You know?
I'm supposed to be rooting for him here, but then later on, like that's one of the things, and I'm curious to see what they end up doing with some of that, because even with the last trilogy that we read of it, there's that element where it's like, well, I'm in the Empire, but I'm still working for the Chiss. But then sometimes you're like, or is he switching to the Empire, or is he still working for the Chiss? And I wonder if they'll kind of confront that in like current stuff.
I don't know,
too,
but I mean, we do know that Dave Filoni has since Ahsoka brought Zahn in, but he at least said that he was having conversations with him. So maybe we'll see something. I don't know. We had a super chat from Zungin who says, we're introduced to the I'm going to try to say all these names. The Lioi.
The Leo-Aoi.
That's, see, I can only hear it. I can't read it. The Garwians.
Leo-Aoin.
Yeah. The Nikradun. And I wish we got more visual detail about their appearances. And do you think Jextus is a Grisk? Now, the Grisk were the
that was the bug people, in the last trilogy that we had, right? Which one was Jixtus?
I can't remember Jixtus right now.
There was, Yiv the Benevolent, who was a Chiss, right?
I'd look it up, but I don't want it to be like Jixtus secretly a Grisk.
I don't remember who Jixtus. Jixtus is the voice at the very end.
Well, yeah, I do then. Okay, because I thought like, oh, you think that's a Grisk, and then it was over.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I think it is.
I think that's a possibility then. I guess I didn't think about the Grisk whenever I was like hearing that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's so interesting to hear Mark Thompson say these words over and over again and then see them spelled.
Sure. I saw some things in chat too from I think Nexus and Gilroy here, which was also during the memories for the Arlani and the art and everything that they were doing.
Yes.
Right? Like in the beginning of that, I thought it was an interesting nod towards they mentioned about how the Chiss used to work in with the Galactic Republic and the Sith War.
Yeah.
They had a comment about that, and I was like we haven't done this since this time, and I was like, ooh, that's so cool, because like in Star Wars: The Old Republic, I played that for a while, and one of the races you could be were Chiss, you know, but then so much of the common like timeline that we're used to doesn't have any Chiss really involved in it, and it's cool to have like a nod towards like, well, here was the Galactic and the Sith War, and I just thought that was a really cool thing.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah, because whether that's meant to be a nod towards SWTOR or just like some old lore at some point, like that's kind of in the canon now with that, and I think that's really neat. I like that.
Yeah, I mean anything that gives a nod towards SWTOR, Knights of the Republic, because that stuff's not canon, you know.
Sure, yeah.
Anything that gives a nod to it, I always respect.
Yeah,
and Zahn is so good at that. Like I was so impressed with his utilization of Rebels in the previous trilogy, in Clone Wars and stuff like that. You know?
Sure, yeah.
So impressed. But yeah, no, that's good. And I do think that voice was a Grisk. Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
Well, there you go, Zungen.
Yep.
There's some thoughts on that. A few other notes I had of some stuff that I really enjoyed. Some of this has to do with that tie-in towards alliances. I enjoyed the discussion of the droid army and how like you kind of found like an irrational idea kind of thing.
Couldn't you just turn them all off?
Yeah, right? Like I thought that was really cool.
I love Mark Thompson's little girl voice.
Yeah.
Couldn't you just turn them all off? And then he immediately goes into no.
I also though enjoyed the moment of Thrawn teaching Cherie to fly.
Yeah, I love that.
I thought that was a really cool moment of like, because she also like talked about like nightmares and stuff like that too, but like in a way like he didn't know necessarily what was going to have to happen. So like teaching her to fly helps in the long run because now I'm going to go to the surface and you're going to stay out and fly. Yeah. But the moment of him teaching her to fly, I thought was a cool thing. Like just seeing Thrawn like, as like you said, like in Rebels he's the antagonist. Like here he's meant to be the protagonist. So seeing him interact and it's a little bit more friendly. It's not quite as intimidating and scary. Even the first time he met the Guardian, he had to he comes up, he talks to her. She feels uncomfortable because she's not gonna be a Skywalker anymore. Or that's what she's afraid of. And like I don't know, there was just like this relation thing, and it stood out in her mind enough that she's like, well, he's not gonna remember that, and he does, and I enjoy like this relationship he has with like the Skywalker and the previous Skywalker. Just
me too.
Things that we don't necessarily get.
The way that he can like. He doesn't disrespect tradition, but he also doesn't consider it too much. Like if this is the way it's done, that's not a good enough reason for him not to do something.
Yeah, sure. Like there's rules and stuff that happen, and he kind of follows those.
You can see that lead to the more villainous Thrawn that we'll get later in his life.
But sometimes it's also like, well, what is it in that moment? It's like, didn't you see the sign that said like no unauthorized personnel? It's like, yeah, but I thought that was the public, and I was doing this because it would benefit me greatly for these kind of things. Right. So like I loved him. I can't remember what the admiral or whatever it was, but like they close his eyes, spin him around because he's talking about how he feels the ship and stuff too. Yeah. And it's like point to the
point forward.
Yeah, point to the front of the ship. And those kind of moments too that kind of shine for like how good Thrawn is at just noticing what's around him and feeling what's around him. Like I thought it's almost like if it was Luke doing it, I'd be like, that must be some Force kind of like noticing of stuff. Like he's tapping into the Force. But with Thrawn, I'm just like, it's just Thrawn, I guess. He just does that, and I don't know. It's really cool to see.
Yeah.
But in that same moment with the droids and everything, when they were looking at Batuu, just the deduction that he has. Like so many times we talk about. Let's see. I think during the old trilogy of Thrawn, you would mention in Heir to the Empire, there was like kind of like a Sherlock Thrawn, and Watson was the.
Gillian Pelion.
Pelion,
yeah. Gilad Pelion, something like that.
Pelion, though, here, like, you kind of get some of those deduction moments even more so, where they're talking about, like, he doesn't know Duja.
Yeah.
Right? They mentioned Duja, and it's all assumptions and deductions he's making with no real knowledge of anything. And it has such a Sherlock kind of feel about Thrawn. And I thought that getting that and also just tying into like a previous moment and then giving us more to context, I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And then as you were saying with him and Anakin talking and the Skywalker moment, I just don't really remember having that Skywalker like reveal moment in that. I think this one, maybe this part of the chapter of the book stood out a lot more because it was tied into alliances and tied into Anakin and all that kind of stuff too. But there's a lot of things of seeing it from the other side, not from Anakin. That was like, it's so cool, like all the things I already know, and like he's figuring these out. But it kind of makes sense as to why he's figuring all this stuff out, and I like that. Like there's a lot of mystery stuff that we have in the book that he's figuring out and doing stuff. But I don't necessarily know what the other side is and the answers yet. Whereas like this one, I've put it all together already because of that book and this book, and I'm like, that's why he comes to these conclusions.
Do you think Timothy Zahn knew he was going to do that?
I don't know.
Like that's 3 books from away.
Sure,
you know, like that's a hell of a thing to put in there. Where he's like, I'll show this some other time, or was it written with the intention of never knowing?
Yeah.
Did he know what Thrawn was thinking in that moment?
Or did you
He had to have, because again, there was one thing that made me think there was a little kid on that ship. I can't remember what it was.
I mean,
I should have reread it.
You know, there's a pilot, right?
Yeah.
And like that moment where he's like, "Well, I wasn't counting your droid or my pilot," but I don't know. I don't know if he wrote it and he's like, "Okay, we need to do some stuff. Okay, this is what I wrote before. What can we do with these that are different?" But I mean, it feels like you could have planned out a lot more of that and already had that.
Was there a part of you, like, you spent so much time with Thrawn and the way he thinks and talks and how thought out he is and how great he is at expressing his thoughts, and then you get to Anakin's scene and you kind of go like, Anakin, you sound like a dummy. Did you judge him a little tiny bit?
Well, especially
what are you talking about? I'm with the Grand Republic. You must know this.
Yeah, no, there is, and that same thing with like just the name aspect, where he's
I say that with all affection in the world, by the way.
Sure,
you
but
dummy.
The same part when it's like, just call me Thrawn. It's like, I'll call you your name, Thrawn Yerodo.
Yeah.
You know, Mithron Erodo. Mithron Erode. That's what I said.
Mithron
you know.
Erodo.
But like he keeps and he says it so calmly.
He's so
over
patient
and
with
over.
him.
And like next to saying too, Cherry like is laughing about it too, and I think it's so funny to have that. And then eventually he's like, "All right, Thrawn," he gives up. But yeah, he kind of like, Anakin, like stop thinking so highly of yourself. Calm down a little bit with some of these.
There's definitely a part of me that wants like Timothy Zahn to do maybe not a whole other trilogy, but like a novel of between Rebels and Ahsoka where Thrawn's stuck. And I'd like to see this pen, Timothy Zahn's pen, to tell me what Thrawn was like during that time. What's he thinking during those times? That'd be kind of fun. In that gap where he's stuck in another galaxy.
In the other...
Because then you could... I think that's a good time where you can kind of bring in a little bit of the less ruthless Thrawn. He becomes far more ruthless later in life.
Sure.
Maybe a good time to like maybe do some stuff. How's he meet Enoch? But we have no idea what the future of Ahsoka is going to be, so maybe that's not something they're interested in. But maybe one day, and Timothy Zahn's still with us, I would like to see something in that time period. Because I think it would be interesting to specifically have him tell me what Thrawn was like then.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what else I had on here. There's like I said, this was, I don't know, 16-hour book or however long it was. Like, it was a pretty long book.
It took a while,
I'm trying to go through all my notes because it's hard to keep all of it sometimes too.
Oh yeah, I understand. I had a good time with it though.
Yeah.
I mean,
I did
especially after reading that first trilogy, which I enjoyed immensely. I'm excited to get into the next one whenever we do, but this one was fun.
Yeah. It was. It was a lot of fun.
Next it says the next 2 are longer.
Man.
Smiley face.
No, it's. I mean, there's a lot there, and I think you need a lot there because it's building up so much of like this area of the galaxy that we are unfamiliar with, the beyond a galaxy, and one of the things was it was Chilla, right, where you're experiencing it through someone who's never been there before, and it's like, wait a minute. Where are all the people? And it's like, well, there's these vehicles and stuff, and like there's those people right there, and like, but those are the only two people. All these other ones look empty, right? And you learn like Chilla's not quite what it seems, right? And like everyone's they've made like a new place down underneath because all the top is like just empty now.
Sure.
Right? And I was like trying to like get all the understandings I could of all that kind of stuff too, of like this world I've never been to and these other aliens that I've never seen, and just trying to like understand and picture and get a grasp on this chaos area.
Chaos.
Yeah, because it's not just the Chiss out there. Like there's
a lot of stuff
other stuff out there, other species out there.
Yeah.
But it was, and it's all the I understand the Empire and like the way their democracy and stuff works. But here you have like this family type of aspect of like they're the ones who are kind of in charge and how do they work, and there's a lot of like what is their government like, and
sure.
A lot of that I found to be interesting, but it's. I might try to go through this book again to try to make sure I'm ready for what the next book is.
You know what helps me sometimes? Like I'll read the whole book, and then I'll go on the Wikipedia article and just read that whole article because sometimes it can be kind of exhaustive. But that really helps me with like, remember that part? Oh, that's who that is. Oh, okay, that's gonna be set up for later. And it's kind of an abbreviated. Look at the book. I do that often.
That might also help too with like getting the names more in my head.
Yeah. Though, how would you? Go like, back up a little bit on chat.
Yes.
Chat. How would you spell Chilla?
Yeah, Chilla. Yeah. No, I don't. It's
Nexus says CSILLIA.
Like it's like Chilla. That Smackro, right? Like reading them probably wouldn't help me necessarily with pronunciation, but maybe it would if I could say them. Like I don't know. It gets even saying Thrawn's name, like having all that there. Would I call him Thrawn Yoroto, or would I call him? I don't know. Like it gets tricky sometimes.
It would be fun to actually read the Anakin Thrawn scene and say exactly what's spelled incorrectly on Anakin's line.
Yeah, right. But like we have the Nick Ardoon. Yeah. Like we had if the Grisk are out in this chaos area too, which they're not from our galaxy, so I would assume they are. Getting a chance to like see what it's like for Thrawn to have to face them too, and maybe get more of what they are like or where they're from.
Yeah, and apparently they're saying too that the book has like kind of a glossary of the families and stuff at the beginning of the book.
Oh, really?
For big family names and stuff like that. So the print version probably would have helped a little bit with that, at least being able to refer to that.
Yeah,
as you're
sure.
reading,
Okay, maybe I'll look that up. And I'm sure
sometimes I love like when books give you like giant maps, Yeah. And you can go back in the map and be like, okay, what are they talking about? Okay, that's there, and they have to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess one of the last things I want to kind of talk about was, I believe it was the Vax. I think it's towards the end. We're going after Yiv the Benevolent.
He's so funny too because Thrawn works best when the person he's going against is like ignorant and like way overconfident, and this guy just turned all that stuff up to 12.
Yeah. But the going to the Vax, there's like a blockade.
Yeah.
There's like kind of a split between like, well, Thrawn's gonna go over here talk to Yiv, but we send like Arlani over here.
Yeah.
And kind of be like, hey, blockade people, we don't want to bother you, but we got a Chiss guy over here. We're gonna go help and take care of this blockade stuff. But I like what ends up happening with all of that. And then the Vax kind of come in. We're like, we're just gonna watch.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a little point like, we're not gonna watch anymore. Like I thought it was interesting there. It's like the Vax also end up helping the Chiss in this, like all their patrol ships were like, I think it's Arlani who's like, no, we need to protect. Like, get your men back. They shouldn't be here. They're gonna get hurt. But it turns in they're not just watching. They're wanting to help and stuff too. And it kind of, I don't know. It's a little bit of that Thrawn. It's like why you like Naruto or My Hero with Deku. It's the inspiration kind of thing. Like Thrawn helps to inspire others to do more things and push themselves even further. And I think this is one of those things too where it's like they might not have done anything with this, but because of what Thrawn has done, where he sent Arlani, the plan he kind of crafted, not only are the Chiss here to help, but the Vax also start helping. And and in that fight, we bring back the shield that he takes from alliances, which I remember being a big thing where it's like he just took it and he took off, But he had reasons of what he was doing,
but I mean, in terms of his, hints into him being ruthless, like he does manipulate that final thing there, where like he makes that alien group come in and fight that and win that battle for him, because he figured out, like, if you attack one of them, they're going to get pissed off. So he lures them in to be destroyed. If they had known that he did that on purpose, they would have been pissed, you know?
Sure, yeah, I guess
it's
so.
a little bit of ruthlessness in there, you know? But it's the beginning. And, like, in Ahsoka, we see the end and the heir to the Empire.
Sure.
So as,
that makes
you know,
sense.
you're gonna get there, which is why I kind of want to see, like, let's have, you know, Timothy Zahn fill in some gaps, you know? It would be kind of fun, which is the best part of Star Wars, filling in gaps.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. No, that makes sense. I get what you mean. Like, you got to have a little bit of that, the bad side of Thrawn, just little bits, and then it grows, especially when he gets in with the Empire, where he's much more ruthless and willing to do all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like attacking Lothal.
When I first watched Rebels or whatever, you kind of think like, oh, this is what Thrawn is like. He's great for the Empire. But now I go, oh, this is what the Empire has turned Thrawn into. This is why it's evil.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
But no, I think those are most of my like big takes from this. Like,
it was a good one.
I want to make sure the Great Presence was mentioned because I like just getting those different ideas of what the Force is in different places. So, but no, it was an interesting book. There's some things that I was kind of wanting a little bit more of.
Yeah.
But maybe what the next two books
We
bring.
got 2 more books.
We'll get a little bit more of that too,
Yeah.
and we'll find out. Okay, I wrote down Jigsus and not Jixtus or however it was written too. So when I was looking through my notes, I'm like, man, who's that guy? So okay, yeah, it'd be interesting to see like how that plays out a little bit too in the future and who they are and if they are a Grisk or if there's something else.
We'll see. Maybe. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Fun book.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I look forward to the next Thrawn book. We won't be going into the next Thrawn book right away.
No.
I know that there's a gap, especially from what Nexus was saying too about like what other books and stuff too.
Yep.
I know he's been looking at like picking books so that we kind of like get the experience and not jump into something that we have no idea what it is. Because sometimes they set up stuff in books and then they pull from those and stuff too. So, but the next book that we have that we're going to be doing, do we want to announce that now or do we want to go into questions?
No, let's announce it now. So
Okay.
we're going to be having another Badonkagonk this month. This was technically last month's Badonkagonk.
Yeah, this is September's
So
technically.
We're going to be having a Badonkagonk in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that is, I mean, it's going to be a little bit closer to Halloween. And we are in Scream Stream territory.
Yes, a lot of Twitch stuff here. If you're watching on Twitch or go to Blind Wave Gaming, we're doing a lot of Scream Stream stuff. And you get chances to scare us while we're also playing scary games. So make sure you guys check that out while you're around Twitch all month long. But because of that, we're going to do something a little different. And I don't even think that Nexus has any idea of what we're going to be doing. But one book that I've always wanted to dive into that I've never gotten to fits perfectly in October. I brought it up last October.
Yep.
And we didn't do it then because I think we had some other books that were like, I really want to do this one right now. But we're going to look at a non-canon book.
Not our first Legends book. Not your first Legends book. You've read some Legends books, but this is our first Badonkagonk Wave Squadron Legends book.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's going to be Death Troopers by Joe Schreiber.
Yeah.
So-
It's also not it's not a real long book, but I'm excited to kind of get a horror style of Star Wars. And I've always thought of the Clone Wars episodes with the Geonosians.
The Geonosian mind worms.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm curious to see what this is like, and it's always been one of my lists that I've never done. So I'm excited to like read it and talk
We're
about
gonna
it.
take the opportunity. The second Badonkagonk of this month, we'll have a horror Legends book.
Yeah, and we'll see what it's like too of you guys having Legends and stuff too, because we've never really gotten to talk about it here on this. Well, I mean, we had a little bit with Eric, but I have much less Legends knowledge. I think of that.
Well, yeah, we'll have to do a maybe next Badonk. I don't know. I might not have time, but we got to do a Legends or Myth again soon. That's how you learn about Legends.
There's some weird Legends things.
Yeah,
so.
sure.
But
yeah, it'll be fun. It's a small book. It's not going to take too long too. So if you want to get caught up for it, check it out.
Yeah.
And we'll have a fun discussion about it.
That will be in 2 weeks, I believe. So on the 17th.
On the 17th, we'll be right back here with more Badonkagonk.